P6 for Liam Lawson was outstanding. He's next to the winner from last year, George Russell, P5. Lewis Hamilton gets his best Grand Prix start for Ferrari in fourth. Oscar Piastri was furious he didn't get a second run. It allowed Charles Leclerc to claim a third front row of the year, and Lando Norris was out front by a mile. Half a second clear, the largest margin of pole position in the entire season so far for a man that has led every single session that he has competed in so far this weekend. But crucially, can he be first to the flag? In the commentary box, I'm Alex Jakes. Alongside me is Jolyon Palmer. But first of all, to the winner of this Grand Prix in 2001, it is a very good afternoon to David Coulthard.
Yeah, good afternoon. A long time ago, 2001, but the track is also familiar, and I think the surface might actually go that far back, and it's causing the drivers all sorts of issues with these warm conditions. So this afternoon, I think this is going to be slow burn initially. Okay, it'll be frantic on the first lap, as it always is, but I think it'll be slow burn as they try and sort of get into a rhythm with the tyres, and then it will all get busy around the pit stops. This is Lando's to lose.
It absolutely is. It feels like a day where Lando can get up the road and escape. With the temperature coming up, the performance that he's had so far this weekend, he has been dominant, and he's really found a rhythm with this McLaren that's been tweaked to get him more suited into the car. He's feeling that car better, and he's putting the laps together. But this is different now. 71 laps, a race start, a Ferrari alongside him. But if he can keep his lead at the start, I feel like he's going to have the pace.
It is a popular racetrack, this one, and we'll be racing here until 2041. That contract extension announced today. We are ticking through to the final moments before the formation lap. The heat haze beginning to rise on the grid. A grid that begins with Lando Norris, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Charles Leclerc, who will remember the struggles that Lando Norris had converting pole positions to the race lead. Back on pole, third time this year. He will lead the field from the line at track temperature with a roasting 50 degrees up in the last couple of moments, and air temperature at 30 degrees as we begin the reconnaissance lap to bring the cars round. And we have a look at the tyres. The top 9 on mediums, Gasly the first runner on the soft.
Nice new mediums as well for everyone in the top 9. You could see the shine on them as they release from the grid. So the start is going to be important. Norris certainly with a great weekend so far in the books. Leclerc will be desperate to get that clear air and make a move at the start. Carlos Sainz hasn't left the grid. Sounds like he's got...
Car is stuck in first gear.
Sainz will be pushed to the pit lane if they can get that car moving. You can see he has been passed by the only car that was going to start behind him, which is Hulkenberg. So the marshals are under instruction in that regard to push the car to the pit lane. One of the shortest laps of the year here, so they've got to move.
Car is stuck in first gear.
Go again, reset with a 10-minute warning, and no one is pushing Sainz, just the yellow flag.
Something is stopping the car from moving forward. Car is stuck.
Copy, I'm just checking what we can do.
I wonder if that's the brake lines that have... I didn't actually see the car juddering. Normally, if he was actually selecting first gear and trying to pull away, you could certainly hear the engine running. But if you...
Something is stopping the car from moving forward. Car is stuck.
Copy, I'm just checking what we can do.
They can do anything other than abort the start.
And they have done. The aborted start is the message from race control. There is no way to move the Williams. There was no attempt to push it until... the marshals can't go on the track of their own volition. They have to be told. And now, with the message of aborted start, we will reset the procedure. We will go back 10 minutes. Though this was defined after the scenes in Sao Paulo last year, where there was total confusion. And we welcome back to the grid the fine men and women who work on these machines. Sainz now eventually does get going at the exact moment that the field peels back to the grid, and it's a bit of a chaotic start for this one in Austria.
Yeah, that's, well, remains to be seen exactly what system reset he needed to do to get the car up and running. There was, just as you see the car there passing through the motorbike chicane, there was a bridge that came down earlier as well, which they did super work in removing that. So anyway, never a dull moment here in these beautiful beautiful scenery of the Austrian hillside.
So Sainz, having caused the delay, is going to go round, and he will be crossing his fingers it doesn't happen again. Otherwise, everyone's going to be getting even grumpier. To confirm, we're not just doing another formation lap like previous years. It is a full reset, personnel on the grid, and we go back to what is effectively 10 minutes before the formation lap.
I can't really think what that would have been for Sainz to have that issue, but then be able to reset it and get going with. Normally when you're cycling through things on the steering wheel, you're kind of eliminating sensors or rebooting them. And I cannot think what he might have been able to kill to get the car moving. He peels into the pits and the team can give that a check out. He'll lose that what was going to be his 19th place starting spot. Is not going to be a big cost to him, is it?
Yeah, see the smoke coming out of the car now. Yeah, there must be a hydraulic leak on that car. We didn't see it on track, but it started to show itself when he entered the pit lane.
What a tough run that Williams find themselves in. A couple of retirements for Albon.
Brakes,
I feel like the car is still braking.
Yeah, there's a fire on the brakes.
On both of them.
So he's got seized rear brakes, hasn't he? I don't know how he's managed.
I feel like the car is still braking.
There's no airflow at all. And this is a little bit like Max Verstappen at the start in Melbourne a couple of years ago, where Carlos Sainz won on that day, where Max retired with a seized rear brake caliper. Carlos has got a double seized rear brakes, and that's Williams straight down there to prevent any further damage, which has probably already occurred in there.
So the formation lap will start at 15 minutes past the hour. If you're watching this one on catch-up, that's in 10 minutes' time. You can fast forward. And Carlos Sainz finds himself with the team looking at the back, and it is a tough run. Alex Albon's retired from the last two Grand Prix. And you've got Sainz, who did get 10th place in Canada, as Williams Ferrari beaters at one point early in the season in Miami find themselves slipping back as teams have to balance developing this year's car with the huge rule change coming in 2026.
So the strange thing is, the last thing he's done is drive the car absolutely normally round to the grid. He's then got out, done all the pre-race procedure, had the national anthem, strapped back in, they've fired the car up, and in the space of that, half an hour, there's obviously been a material change, maybe a heat soak on the grid or something, and the car's just seized up at the rear brakes.
Yeah, the car's up on the jacks now, and you can just see them rotating the rear axle. So it does look like the brakes have released. I've certainly had that before. These are brake-by-wire systems, so independent front and rear. But in the days of my racing, it was a hydraulic loop, and I've had it where there's been so much heat soak, it's actually expanded the fluid, and the brakes have stayed on. So you're trying to leave through practice in Imola, and you're trying to leave the garage, and it's like, oh, somebody's pulled a handbrake on, and of course we don't have a handbrake.
All right, an odd scene in Formula One in 2025. They're continuing to monitor what was a fire, which are now smoking brakes. A reminder for you then that we reset the clock on an aborted start with the amendment to the rule book from 2024 into 2025. It is essentially a 10-minute reset if we get an aborted start.
If I'm at the front of the grid, I'm not loving this. You G yourself up and you're ready to go. All the pre-race preparations, the visualization, if you're into it. And then you have to get back out of the zone and you think about your aborted start procedures, which Lando didn't get right, remember, in Brazil last year. But, of course, he's learned from that, and it's a full reset here. But you need to then think back into, OK, we've still got a 70-lap race coming up.
Game over, Carlos.
And the inevitable message being delivered, game over. Carlos Sainz will not.
Game over, Carlos.
It is physically undrivable from a safety and race point of view one day later. And James Vowell's expression tells you all you need to know.
Oh, it's so frustrating, isn't it? It's bad enough if you only manage to do a lap of the Grand Prix and get involved in an incident, but not to even get to do one of my favourite bits, the build-up to the lights going out and all that eager anticipation and hope and excitement that you get to enjoy. He doesn't get any of that, Julian. He's been shortchanged.
Yeah, the worst thing is he's out the race and having to watch everyone else have that moment as well, and the anticipation and the chance to make your day at the race start as well. He's not been lucky at all, has he, so far this year, I don't think, Carlos. His pace hasn't been on a par with Alex Albon, but it's not been far away overall. But quite a few times, just luck hasn't gone his way, and floor damage yesterday, consigned to the back row of the grid, and then not even making the start is another tough weekend for him.
Yeah, but we did see the camera there as the mechanics were pushing the car into the garage. It framed up on his Scottish partner, Rebecca Donaldson, so he might not be lucky on track, but he's lucky in love.
DC loves mentioning a Scot anytime he can. Let's check in with two chaps now who thought they were done.
And I cannot tell you the temperature of the seat is maybe, I don't know, 200 degrees.
Copy that.
I love.
And I cannot tell you the temperature of the seat is maybe, I don't know, 200 degrees.
Copy that.
Live in the Racing Bulls garage, man who's involved in their football programme, having left Liverpool a season ago, part of that sporting empire now.
Yeah, what a legend. I saw him on the grid. He's a lot taller than he looks on television.
Yeah, I'm glad you were speaking to him then, not me. That's the right way around. 2.5 minutes to go until we bring you what you are all tuning in for. The formation lap and then lights out for the Austrian Grand Prix, and they are This race that dropped off the calendar after 2003 was brought back thanks to the Red Bull racing empire, and that was back in 2014. It will run all the way now to 2041. And Formula One gives you a contract extension these days. It's for a while, but when the crowd have made their way in, not a spare seat in sight, so many fans on the hill as well. It's not just a great motor race for 90 minutes on a Sunday. It's a great weekend of action, and so many fans returning year in, year out, and will get the chance to do so for 15 more years.
Just the 15 years to add to the multiple years across the board for many other venues. Miami got a whopper, didn't it, earlier on in this season as well. But what a venue this is. It lends itself so well to racing, and that's what I had the pleasure of speaking to the top three in Monaco after qualifying, and it was the same top three in the same order, and Charles was so downbeat. Home race for him, but he knew the chance of overtaking was difficult. But this time it's a different racetrack, and it is one that you can overtake on. It's one that he's had fantastic battles on in the past as well. So now he needs to focus back to the start of the race and think, how can I get this Ferrari out front?
Talking at the start of the race, with 1 minute to go until the formation lap, I want to show you last year's start. And this is the homework that the drivers will have studied. This is the moment coming your way in about 4 minutes' time. The lights went out. It was Max Verstappen on pole. Lando Norris, no chance to react. It's a short run to turn one.
Short run, and it bunches up at the first corner. You can see contact there further back, and it always funnels into that first apex. You then get another great opportunity to overtake up at turn 3, and you can see Max is checked out, but behind it's George Russell attacking Lando Norris, Lewis Hamilton fighting with Charles Leclerc, and they all squeak through another corner. But we have seen so much drama in the past at turn 1, at turn 3, and then there's one more opportunity down at turn 4.
That was then. This is now. After a 10-minute wait, it is time to give you the formation lap. The second one will lose 1 lap of the lap count. It will be 70 around the 2.8 miles, and we will see plenty of action coming your way in a few moments. Green light is on. Lando Norris is off the line, and we hope that all the cars can make it round. As you see, Gabriel Bortoleto making his way from P8, the first time yesterday that he made it into the top 10 qualifying shootout. He has been outstanding so far this weekend. Last car off the line is meant to be Hülkenberg, and he does eventually get going.
Yeah, that was a bit of a delay, wasn't it? But there, as you can see, they're all already bunching up on the run to the first corner. But what was quite telling for me there is that you can't really use it, other than if you're on the front 2 places, as a simulation of the proper restart. But Charles Leclerc definitely got off the line very well in comparison to Lando Norris. Not enough to look like he was going to outrun him, but that'll give Charles a bit of confidence. Being on that inside, what should be historically dustier part of the track, he certainly didn't look like he was losing any position. So I reckon Charles is going to be getting himself lined up for having a go into turn 3 on the first lap.
You get those 2 opportunities, and then 3 if you've made something of turn 3 into the downhill right-hander at the end of that. If he can just stay close after 1, then there is that long drag, and you can overtake inside or outside at turn 3, and the exit is still critical. So Lando has been the pace man. He should have the fastest car and the fastest package in today's Grand Prix, but he's got a lot of work to do to keep hold of this lead.
It was Bottas, then Verstappen, then Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen in 2023, and last year an epic race, side by side. Norris and Verstappen, lap after lap after lap, and we thought it couldn't continue. It didn't continue. They made contact, and they opened the door for George Russell to win the Grand Prix. Lando Norris has never won the Austrian Grand Prix. Yesterday was his first pole position around the circuit. Charles Leclerc will be doing what our ex-Formula One drivers have been talking about. He'll be dreaming of the lead by the time he exits turn 3.
We'll keep an eye on Max Verstappen as well, putting big heat into his front tyres. He needs a good start to get back into the podium fight, or maybe even better. He has much more pace in there than his 7th on the grid.
It's quite a long wait for the pole man for the rest of the grid to line up, and that has an effect on, obviously, your tyre prep is you're losing temperature. So this is not ideal as Hülkenberg slowly brings the field round.
Yeah, He's been taking his time. 19 on the grid, one retirement before we even got to the lights. That's Carlos Sainz, who is out with a mechanical failure. Andrea Stella watches on. We await the green flag at the back. The action in Austria is 5 lights away. And the Grand Prix is underway. A good launch off the line for Lando Norris. Sees him chop across Charles Leclerc, but Charles Leclerc got a great amount of momentum, but was blocked. Oscar Piastri roars around the outside and takes second position. McLaren 1-2. The Australian driver promised to go on the attack. He said he was going to be overtaking drivers. He's got a scarlet Ferrari. It's his teammate and rival for the title ahead. But Lando Norris gets the run that he needs, and it's a lock-up for Kimi Andrea Antonelli, and he's hit Max Verstappen. He's hit Max Verstappen at turn 3. They continue to race. The lock-up from the Mercedes with a huge moment. And now George Russell improves up to 4th position. The position's changing all the way through. But what has happened to Max Verstappen?
Yeah, he just got clipped on the rear axle as that Mercedes came in, front axle completely locked up. And, well, that's no worse feeling than when you've lost control and the safety car is out immediately.
Safety car is deployed. Verstappen, Antonelli at the bottom of the timing page.
Verstappen's out. Verstappen is done. Antonelli steamed in. I think he missed his brake point on the inside. And the problem is the rest of the field are filtering through that tight right-hander at the top of the hill. And Antonelli was locked up and just clobbered an innocent Max Verstappen, who was minding his own business, trying to find a way through. But that's the problem when you're starting 7th. You're more at the mercy of those around you. And it looked to me initially like Antonelli was just all locked up and out of control there.
Yeah, and you can see Antonelli still sitting in the car, even though the front corner, you can see front left is hanging out. I think he was rather staying in the car thinking this is the safest place until I ascertain whether Max is angry or not. But looks to me, by his body language, he's physiologic. You're going to have to say that word for me, Julian. He's reflective and not in a bad mood.
Well, Max Verstappen has an incredible run in Formula One. He's out of the race. His current point streak of 31 comes to a close, and for only the 2nd time in the last 75 races, the reigning world champion will not see the checkered flag.
And there was a chat between the two as they're walking off. He seems okay with it, at peace with that, Max. I wonder if Kimi was just saying, sorry, that was not my intention in the slightest, but he was just all out of control as he arrived to the back of the Red Bull. And helmet on for Antonelli, marching behind the barriers as well. Let's have a look at the race start, because Norris does his teammate quite a big favour here by chopping heavily to the inside, blocking off Leclerc in a bid to keep the lead, but it means Leclerc is so pinched to the apex at turn 1, Piastri sweeps right round him.
Yeah, he was indeed, and you can see a few cars running over the yellow sausage curve. There's a great angle from behind and a very tasty launch. But you can see, as I pointed out on the practice start, Leclerc was right there with Lando, and that made it that he had to compromise, and that allowed Oscar late in the straight to get a slipstream. Think about it. I think if that was Max, he might have sent it a bit more aggressively, and there's Antonelli completely locked up. And then just nowhere and no warning for Max when that impact came on the rear axle.
Yeah, 30 out of 10 for ambition for Antonelli. Max has actually made a good start. He's already fighting with those for 4th place here, and then whack. Antonelli way out of control from 4 cars back.
I got hit like crazy. Idiots.
Well, Max Verstappen has only started as low as 7th position once so far this season. This is the risk when you're in the middle of the pack. Antonelli avoids the racing ball, but hits the senior driver, and the world champion is out.
Sorry about that. Locked the rear. Sorry.
I think he's just caught himself out. Look how far back Antonelli is.
Sorry about that. Locked the rear. Sorry.
3, so he's had to take avoiding action and just darted to the inside. In doing so, the rear's locked as well, and then the front, and then it's panic stations into the back of Verstappen. It's a sort of lapse in concentration, maybe a rookie mistake is what you classically call it, but certainly 100% on Antonelli. They're not reading the situation in front of him, and those two in front slowing down. It was either an unbelievably ambitious pass, trying to get round 2 of them, or he simply was trying to avoid hitting the back of them and then steered around, lost control of the car, and hit the back of the one in front of the duo ahead.
Yeah, I think like Lando in Montreal, there's no point trying to blame anyone else other than, you know, a racing mistake on that entry. We saw Hadjar has popped into the pits and taken another set of tyres, so taking advantage of getting a set away. Not really sure what the advantage would be for him in terms of unlikely, well, impossible, I would say, to go the distance. So he's got a fresher set on.
Yeah, just a desperation to get rid of that soft tyre. The green flag will fly once again around the Spielberg circuit. And it's lap 3 of 70. Lando Norris versus Oscar Piastri will be the fight up the hill. Piastri, who cleared Charles Leclerc in the opening meters of the Grand Prix. Hamilton was able to keep Russell at bay. They were fighting into turn number 4. And Antonelli and Verstappen will be investigated after the race for causing a collision. Lando Norris out front, though, has absolutely streaked clear. He's got the restart that he needed, and it is McLaren 1 and 2, Ferrari 3 and 4, and then we see Russell in 5th. Gasly is up 4 places in P6. Albon is up 5 places in 7th. Then it's Bortoletto, Lawson down 9, and Alonso completes the top 10 as Russell fights against his old teammate, but there's no way through at turn number 4, despite the momentum the British driver had.
Let's keep an eye, though. We saw lots of overtakes around the outside, and amazingly in 6 and 7, F1 cars tend to be a bit more aero-sensitive, so George backing out of it.
Gave each other just enough space there. It was a late move to the inside from Russell. Hamilton gave him the apex, but George just slowed it down and didn't force any issue wider than that, and they can go again through the middle sector and get back to it immediately over the start-finish.
Further back, Oliver Behrman, Franco Colapinto racing each other over the curb. Goes the British driver, and still in 11th position is Franco Colapinto, who is continuing at Alpine on a race-by-race basis.
Norris did a good job as well at the start, holding off Piastri at turn 3. That was a good attack that Oscar had side by side up there, and that was just as Antonelli was wiping out Verstappen.
Just close the door on the braking.
Telling tales to teacher. Well, DRS has been enabled, as you can see there on George's car, rear wing wide open, and then Max didn't even have the chance.
Just close the door on the braking.
That's the classic please don't talk to me scenario. But DRS, I was going to say 0.7 of a second it gives you around this short racetrack, so it is massively advantageous, and Oscar's firmly within that DRS zone.
He'll get the first of 3 chances after this next corner, and this could be a chance for him to put pressure on his teammate.
Piastri was so frustrated not to get the opportunity to try and claim his place on the front row. It's a huge amount of time he needed to beat Lando Norris to pole position. He's got 4 pole positions this year, but he's got 5 wins. Chasing number 6. His rival for the title is the one ahead, but remember what happened to the McLarens in the last Grand Prix. They're the ones who have the pace. They're the ones who have the track position. But Piastri is within that second window, and the luxury of having 2 great race winners is that you can compete week in, week out. But that's late on the brakes for Oscar Piastri, who's immediately applying the pressure to his rival for the title.
Oh, we all sat back and took a breath there. It did look like that was going to be a late send, but I think it's actually strategic more just to put the frighteners on Lando, because that's not a classic corner to overtake on the brakes from far back, because the apex comes in quite early, Julian.
Yeah, Norris was harvesting energy for a long way down that straight, so he's using that deployment from the hybrid system to get a little bit more speed at this point and out of turn 1. But then he was clipping and just not having the speed all the way to the braking zone at turn 4. So that's why Piastri suddenly came towards him. And it's just difficult for Norris to break away from this. The DRS is powerful. His teammate is on an absolute charge right now, and there are overtaking opportunities.
I absolutely love this from Oscar. The fact that he's not sort of sitting back and waiting for the race to come to him. He's taking the risk of, you know, burning those tyres out early by putting pressure on his teammate. He's going motor racing.
And it's brilliant to see. McLaren, who waited a decade for this chance, 1 and 2.
Your call on the racing situation.
Yes, please. I'll have a go, thanks.
Yeah, that's good to hear. It's slightly confusing why they would want.
Your call on the racing situation?
All weekend through 6 and 7.
Yeah, I wonder if Lando was just running slightly low in his energy in the battery, and that's why he had to have that extra bit of harvesting down at 4. If he's now able to get into a better cycle as he completes the fastest lap of the race, a tenth and a half quicker than Piastri, but just extends the gap. Has he managed to get himself back onto an equilibrium, or will the pressure keep coming?
Charles Leclerc is 2.8 seconds behind, 2.9 seconds behind Oscar Piastri. We're on lap 8 of 70. We lost one for an aborted start when we lost Carlos Sainz, who is the first retirement. And Kimi Antonelli hit Max Verstappen at the third turn on the first lap. As we make our way through turn 4, no opportunity for Piastri to get by. And on the instructions, remember the first race of the year when they issued orders, and Piastri appeared to take that personally and has been on a tear all the way through the season since, with 5 wins to his name. McLaren's leading driver in the championship. They're 1 and 2 in the points coming into this Grand Prix.
Yeah, he's putting, having to fingertip it in the high speed not to overload that front right tyre, but he's continuing to just hang in to the DRS distance to give him that 0.7 advantage. So it's kind of, you gain through DRS, but you lose through losing downforce in the corners. And then just a quick note on Albon, big winner of the start so far, up from 12th, running in 7th.
Gasly up to 6th as well, from 10th on the grid on those the soft tyres that he started on. The first of the runners that didn't start on the mediums. Piastri is just running in the DRS, but at this point he is putting so much pressure on Norris, because these are difficult braking zones as well. Turn 1, short, sharp right-hander. Turn 3 is the second big braking zone up the hill, and then you've got this downhill descent at 4, and they're so lock-up inducing. The gravel's there to greet you at the end of this one as well. And with Piastri just being constantly there, Norris knows, A, he has to be really quick, and they are checking out from the Ferraris. This is a brilliant scrap between the McLarens out front. They're pushing each other really hard, and there can be, got to be pace, but can be no errors from Norris.
Yeah, I actually agree, Julian. I'm loving the fact that this is a motor race. I sort of said it before the race that I thought they would be sort of playing themselves in, trying to find out where the tyres are, but it doesn't appear to be that at all as we go on board with Albon and is about to execute last of the late breakers.
Yeah, soft tyres for Pierre Gasly. Alexander Albon finds himself on the mediums, and he finds himself up to P6.
Piastri's closer this lap than he has been for a while. He's just on the fastest lap of the race, 2/10 quicker than Norris.
These feel like pivotal laps in the World Championship battle. This circuit, even when McLaren haven't been at their most competitive, has always favoured Lando Norris. He's been in the fight for pole. He took his maiden podium around here. He is being put under enormous pressure, and for the first time in this Grand Prix, he has to show a defensive shape from the lead.
Oh, this is going to be fun. This is definitely going to get interesting. You just sense that Oscar's going to take a lunge at some point. Look how wide Lando was there, actually. So given he's the lead car and he's got clean air, he didn't quite manage to get it into the apex. And brilliant display of driving from both of them.
He's fighting it through 7 as well, just working the rear end of his lead McLaren, and Piastri's even closer this time around. So that's why he had the look a few laps before to try and get Norris to defend thin air when he was close enough. But he needs to be another car length to really put the pressure on, and he might well be on this lap.
Classic Formula One in progress. Lando Norris checking the left-hand mirror because Oscar Piastri will not give him an inch. The two McLarens are side by side again. Piastri started in 3rd, takes the lead on lap 11, and they were millimetres away from contact. They're still side by side, like they were in Canada, this time in Austria. Inside line for Lando Norris. It will be the lead if he can pick his braking point. Piastri's super brave around the outside, tries the up and under, no chance at the moment. This is absolutely wonderful. They're at it again, but it's not for 4th place. It's for the lead of the Grand Prix, and they still can't resolve it. Lando hangs on. Lando still leads. What a fight.
Oh my God, this is absolutely brilliant stuff. And it was almost like Lando was saying, okay, look, I'm going to play the DRS game with you, but then came back and he closed his own DRS very early before breaking into 4, and that might have just taken the fight out of Oscar. Might.
Oh, I don't think it has. He's still there and he's closer than ever, coming over the line once again. What amazing scrapping between the two. I imagine Andrea Stella, I'm surprised he hasn't got his hands covering his eyes at this point, given what happened in Canada. Amazing scrapping, but they gave each other enough space through all of those corners, 3, 4, and then 6.
Oliver Bearman has come into the pits. He is making his stop, the driver who was over the road at turn 3. We are showing you this all the way through because it's under a second and has been for a while. The man from Melbourne had a late lunge that signalled his intent early on, and he has kept within a second all the way through. Lando Norris standing tall right now and resisting the pressure, but it is unrelenting. Further back in the field, this is for the points. This is Gabriel Bortoleto trying to score his first points today in the World Championship. Medium tyres go past fading softs, and P7 for Bortoleto. Gasly will try and hang on, but in a traction race, surely the medium tyre will be the one to be on, and Bortoleto goes through to 7th place.
He's been super impressive all weekend, and you've had a sense that the speed's been there, but he just hasn't had the rub of the luck in the Grand Prix, but he's in the mix and making a name for himself right now.
This time Piastri is right on the cusp of that 1 second. He was fractionally over at one point, but within the second at the DRS detection, and now he'll get those 3 stabs once again. But he'll need to use this lap to just close back in to the back of Norris out front and put the pressure on again. But it's unrelenting, isn't it? It really is unrelenting. And Norris did really well, actually, to know when he was beaten at turn 3 and cut back to the outside to get the exit for 4. And that's what this racetrack does. You get 3, possibly 4 opportunities up towards this corner as well to duel it out. And even though he was done at 3, he then had the DRS because he was behind at the detection point on the exit of that, and used that to just about hold on to that inside line at turn 4. Both brave under braking. I wasn't sure if Piastri was going to try and hang it around the outside there, and it certainly forced Norris into going deep. And look how hard they're pushing.
Yeah, and what's going to be really interesting here, gents, is are they going to say, right, Lando's lead car in this case, so he gets the first choice to come in, effectively taking away the opportunity for Piastri to try and undercut.
Lando Norris is using so much of the road. It looked like a qualifying lap through turn number 9, and he was over the curb at turn number 1.
He was fractionally too wide, but he got away with it. I think he was too wide as well on the time where Piastri had his big chance. I think he didn't quite get the perfect exit, but he's having to be 10 out of 10 at the moment as Piastri takes a tear off and wants a nice clean view at the back of the race leader once again down towards turn 4. Norris, he's got to be clean, but he's got to be quick because this pressure is just constant from Piastri, who's able to drive on Norris's gearbox and somehow keep these medium tyres in as well.
Yeah, that's what's so impressive for me, because he's getting turbulent air. He's not getting nice, clean air across the wings, and that car must be sliding around as Oliver Bearman looks for the undercut on the exit of turn 3. Then he'd say as well, if the inside's blocked off, I'll do the outside.
Both on the hard tyres. Bearman stopped a lap earlier. Gasly got them into the temperature window. He found himself there. Look how close Piastri is! Looking into turn number 1. You almost don't want to be that close into turn number 1 because the big opportunity is coming up now.
Yeah, actually, sorry, Julian, I was going to say he lost momentum by being that close into 1.
Norris must have made a mistake in the final sector there. Piastri is going to have another charge.
Piastri on the charge! He places the car behind. There was an enormous opportunity to take the lead. You can see Lando Norris lighting up the tyres. McLaren are lighting up this race. 0.3 of a second, 0.2 of a second. Nothing between the two McLarens once again. And Norris, his heart will be pounding after those couple of corners. That was the biggest threat to his lead disappearing.
Yeah, Oscar, I think, is just being a little bit tentative in the braking areas, not going all in, not taking the risk of sending it. The way that we saw Lando in Montreal at the hairpin came from so far back and caught Oscar by surprise.
Norris wide of the apex at turn 6. I think he was off the road at the final corner on the previous lap. That's why Piastri had such a charge at him coming in towards turn 1. Let's ride on board through that corner this time with Oscar staring down the barrel of the race lead again, 7 tenths away, and Norris, he is just having to be on the limit to try and just absorb the pressure from Piastri. If he's starting to drive within himself, he'll just get swamped. But then he's making a few mistakes here or there, and he's having to get his elbows out to keep that lead.
He's definitely managing this race, though, because they're both running slightly slower than the Ferraris of Leclerc and Hamilton. So that early pace of the McLarens pulling away has now started to subside, and definitely they're in a race of their own, but they're not pulling away anymore from the Ferraris.
It's probably damaging them, both of their tyres at the way they're pushing.
We need Leica all corners, Charles, every lap. That's what I am doing, Brian. That is what I'm doing.
Lift and coast, I see.
Norris fighting the rear now. I think he's overheating his rear tyre. So yeah, lift and coast for Charles Leclerc. Brian Bozzi on the radio saying that this is going to be Lando making a mistake. It's 9, he's on the gravel, and then he's off the road again at 10.
How did he hang on to the lead? The lap before, we saw him on the edge. The lap after, over the edge. And the largest trophy only just stayed in his theoretical possession. It's still only half a second, as it's a double Williams retirement. Alex Albon out of the race. It's a tough run of races for the British team. They are struggling right now after having a great start to the season. Battle on again. Feels like it never ended after last year's Austrian Grand Prix. We're fighting every single lap for P1.
And when you're Piastri and you see your teammate ahead slithering around, finding the gravel, 1 corner, 2 corners, you're thinking, I can do this. He is under so much pressure here.
Lando, opportunity, make turn 6 apex. It makes it harder for the other car.
You've been told to take your apexes, DC?
Never. That was my quest my entire career, was to try and hit an apex.
Use the racing line.
Yeah. It is interesting the way they share information with Lando. It sometimes feels very sort of from the ABC book of how to be a Grand Prix driver, and I don't say that in a condescending way. It's just how it comes across sometimes.
Here's Yuki Tsunoda late on the brakes, getting to the apex first. That's going to be contact, and it is. Tsunoda and Stroll coming together at turn 3. Tsunoda did get ahead, but it wasn't clean.
No, that wasn't, and I think they've got a real case of being able to suggest that Tsunoda pushed the other car off the track.
Okay, lift and coast for 3rd place. Charles Leclerc trying to extend the medium tyre for as long as possible. McLaren taking the complete opposite approach. A thrilling duel is still only 6 tenths of a second away, and George Russell wants the fresher tyres first. He's currently running in 5th. Mercedes, who brought a new suspension back to the car for Canada and won the Grand Prix, knew that this weekend in warmer temperatures was going to be a test, and at the moment they are the 3rd fastest car.
Yeah, Russell's actually not really going quicker than Bortoletto. The Sauber driver is having the weekend of his life at the moment. No points so far this season, and he's running 6th, looking at the back of a Mercedes, and he's got Lawson and Alonso coming with him as well. So this, with everything going on at the front, this is going to be a great day for some of the minnows as well.
Lando Norris is moving around at those final 2 corners in a way that will be making McLaren nervous, in a way that we are reveling in the commentary box, and I'm sure you are at home, because they aren't just wondering about the lap times and conserving and waiting for the pit stops. They're all out attack to win the Grand Prix.
Yeah, this is thank you McLaren for allowing them to go racing. And Oscar struggling a bit off of 3, doesn't quite get to capitalise on the DRS and the increased speed as he enters that corner. And then, as you've already mentioned, Julian, that Lando is deploying a bit of energy out of 3 to neutralise any attack down into 4.
And then there's not much that Oscar can do for the rest of the lap now. Once he's not close enough, you need to be really side by side in towards turn 6. And he has made some amazing moves, hasn't he, there in the past, Oscar?
So Lando, the gap to Bortoletto is 20.3, so we're happy to pit. If we're going to get passed by Oscar, we would pit before him. If not, we just keep going.
So they are really racing each other in the team. That is one side of the garage trying to work out how they can beat the other side of the garage in what is normally, you're looking across to the other team, aren't you? You're working out how you can beat a Red Bull or a Mercedes or a Ferrari, but now they're looking at each other and thinking, well, if you're going to pass me, I'm going to pit and stay ahead with an undercut.
Yeah, we've discussed this before, haven't we? This is the most complex scenario for any Formula One team when you've got the quickest car and two #1 drivers, because one of them's going to be left unhappy with who gets the first pit stop if that undercut then leads them to maintain the position for the remainder of the Grand Prix.
Just a waft to the inside, looking for more, locking up. I thought he was trying to put the frighteners on, and he nearly ripped off the front wing. We saw that between McLarens before. That was not comfortable for Piastri down into turn 4.
No, that was a bit too late, too little too late. And, well, McLaren are going with Norris.
Well, I wonder if Piastri might need the pit stop more after the big front lock-up, so Norris will have to peel in, and he does now, to not cross that white line through this penultimate corner. It'll slow Piastri down as well, and Norris blinks first. Piastri will go one more lap, presumably, but that was a close moment, wasn't it? I think Lando saw it coming late, started to turn in a little bit early, which meant Oscar just panicked, hit the brakes harder and had the lock-up.
What an opening stint to the Grand Prix that was. Not the fastest from McLaren, though. That's not ideal. 3.1. Could that be a second of opportunity for Oscar Piastri next time round? Yeah,
that's a new set of hards, though, and this will be an opportunity to give it the full beans, drive it like a quali lap.
This is so important for Lando's race that he clears the Sauber. What a sentence. Shows you the weekend that Bortoletto is having, and he does so.
Even with the slower stop. So he's got away with that. McLaren, I mean, they don't want to decide this by one of their drivers having a slow pit stop. This amazing battle, and they've got through one of them. 3.1 seconds, not ideal, but it should be okay for Norris on the fresh tyres.
Let's see your pace in free air now.
Yeah, okay, I have a flat spot.
Understood. Let's see how the pace is.
So that pit stop's coming at a bad time for Piastri, who had just had this attempt to try and make it through.
Let's see.
To turn 4, it's late on the brakes and avoiding action having to be taken in the end.
Yeah, that was so close. And this is us on board with Lando, lines the car up perfectly. It was a little bit slow. Must have been that front left that just took a bit longer to be comfortable. And, well, that message to Oscar Piastri suggests to me that he's going to stay out a bit longer if they want to see what pace he can do. And meanwhile, we'll have his teammate, Lando Norris, will be putting in some pretty tasty lap times, I'm sure.
Yes, the logical thing now for Piastri is to go long and have a bigger tyre advantage for the remainder of the race.
Flat spot data looks okay to continue, let me know.
Yes, not pleasant, but it's okay.
It just depends how much time he's going to be losing with the vibrations and the feeling and the lack of grip net on the front.
One Sauber coming out of the pit lane, one Sauber on the attack to the apex first at turn 1. That's Hulkenberg getting past Behrman, and Hulkenberg improves up to 11th as Bortoletto blends back onto the racetrack. That's not what you want. That's exactly what Lando Norris was trying to avoid. So Bortoletto, having made his stop, currently at restricted pace. He's got Behrman on the hard tyre ahead, and then he's got his teammate on the medium ahead as well, after a great opening stint of the Grand Prix for the Brazilian driver, trying to score his first points in Formula One today. It's been 20 points so far this year for Sauber, all scored by Hulkenberg.
So Piastri stays out and isn't running at a great pace, but of course he's not going to be on a 23-lap-old medium tyre now. Norris is going quicker on his fresh hards. How much does Lando push? Because he now doesn't want to chew up these hards for when Piastri pits, and then we'll have an attack at him again. He needs to keep something in them for another threat at another time, and he also doesn't want to be under pressure immediately either. It's a fine balance.
Good question. Better to be 4 seconds behind Lando with more delta, or 1.5 behind?
4 with delta.
So that suggests he'll stay out a bit longer, because he's losing about a second a lap right now to Norris.
It's like choosing options off a menu, isn't it?
I quite like that as a communication there. Do you want to sacrifice your time now but have better tyres later on? He'll have to make up the 4 seconds, but then he'll have a bigger tyre advantage to make the move. Or do you want to pit and stay close?
Bortoletto still behind Oliver Behrman at the moment. And Behrman, who stopped 11 laps ago to take on that hard tyre, is the driver ahead for the time being. That is about to change. Bortoletto gets by both of them, F2 graduates, into Formula One this year. and a tidy pass for Bortoleto on the fresher rubber.
So these guys have pitted. Bortoleto is having such a strong race now behind his teammate who has pitted as well. 10 laps to go, so a massive undercut.
And they're doing a good job. Oscar's pace hasn't really picked up.
Yeah, I think that's one, keeping him informed, and two, trying to give him a little psychological boost, because you get into that uncertainty, Jolene, don't you? You know you've pitted, you know where you are on the racetrack, but you're blind to where everyone else is as he now gets the call.
And they're doing a good job. Oscar's pace hasn't really picked up.
The offset went for the fresher rubber option rather than resuming the battle immediately. He saw how much Norris was moving around. He believes that the rubber advantage will be telling to try and win the Austrian Grand Prix. He is received by his team. Let's see how McLaren do with the second car, and it's 3.4 as Lando Norris is going to head on through, and he comfortably has the lead. They were talking about a 4-second gap, and a similar time at the pit stop will ensure that. It's Piastri with the fresher rubber, though, by 4 laps.
Yeah, it looks like that's even bigger, though. That looks like more than a 4-second gap, is it?
Yeah, it's 5.5.
Yeah, he's got to build up to speed on this straight as well and get the hard tyres working properly, so it might even go up from that as well. Of course, the pit stop probably a second more than McLaren would have hoped for in that. Piastri losing a little bit of pace on his flat-spotted medium, so he'll be a bit annoyed to have taken option B 4 seconds and find it's actually option B 6 seconds.
Yeah, see how bumpy it is as they approach into their front left. Yeah, front left again. So, yeah, front left side of the car not having a brilliant day so far.
So bumpy in Parc Fermé, where the winner will park up later on. Charles Leclerc's coming into the pits. He had inherited the race lead by going slightly longer. Not miles away, that upgraded Ferrari for this Grand Prix. A new floor on the car, and he locks up, taking the last of the grip of those tyres. Hamilton goes through to the race lead. Charles Leclerc trying to stand on the podium again today. He's done so on 3 occasions so far this season.
Ferrari are practically unopposed now. Verstappen's out of this race. It's George Russell who remains a contender, but he didn't have a lot of pace in that first stint. So it's Leclerc v Hamilton at the moment for a podium. Lewis stays out and takes the lead, but will surely also be in the pits to make on the next lap.
Is he letting me by or what?
Yes, but you need to get into DRS.
That's the sort of blunt radio communication that you usually get in Formula 2. And the instruction to get on with it issued to Bortoleto. Bortoleto expecting Hülkenberg to move on by, and that switch will be happening.
Is he letting me by or what?
Yes, but you need to get into DRS.
Hülkenberg not in the mood to compromise his race at the moment. Gasly gets past Stroll for 9th. Stroll is in 10th. Hülkenberg is in 11th. Hamilton's been called to the pits. And Norris has the fastest first sector of anyone so far. The pink and blue car is Gasly, and then it is Stroll falling backwards. Hülkenberg passed now for 10th place, and Bortoleto gets by, but he's still behind his team.
Well, Hülkenberg's got his own race to think about. He's also made a pit stop, and he's in the fracas with everyone else around there on the fringes of the points. So it's not the best time for Bortoleto to come up behind his teammate and demand team orders.
As Hamilton will come out behind his teammate, who finds himself staring at Fernando Alonso and Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson with that superb 6th on the grid yesterday, his best of the season and his 2nd ever top 8 Formula 1 Grand Prix start. And this is on board with Charles Leclerc, who will cycle past the car that has yet to stop. Alonso is not going to waste any time fighting a car that's not in his race, and it's Lawson next up. Liam Lawson today, after all the talk has been of his rookie teammate, who's in 10th in the World Championship standings. Lawson looking for just a 2nd Grand Prix point score this year.
Yeah. Sorry, Julian. He certainly needed a strong weekend, Liam Lawson. It's been sort of slightly overshadowed by Hadjar, who is the least experienced of the two.
He's having it, isn't he? We're looking at a one-stop race, certainly for those that haven't pitted, and even for those that are pitting only now. Degradation not as high as we thought it might be.
Try and keep it on the road. Pierre Gasly committed to the apex of turn 6, found out he had no grip, and Bortoletto gets past the Alpine and back into the top 10. But he's sailing off the road there at that point.
Oscar, feedback. Oscar, feedback from the pit wall. The manoeuvre in turn 4 with the front lockup was too marginal. We can't do that again.
You can do nothing with it.
You either let them race and deal with potential near moments, or you don't. I mean, it's so difficult for a guy in the same car as his rival, with a driver as good as Norris or Piastri, to make a drive-by clean move. You know, there has to be a level of risk. For Piastri there, it was a little bit late. It was a little bit half-hearted. Norris maybe turned in fractionally early, that put the squeeze on him that he wasn't quite expecting there. But there's 6.5 seconds between them. Let them get close and let's see what plays out. I think trying to second-guess drivers that are as good as these guys is difficult.
Yeah, just to expand on that as well, they're highly paid professionals. You've got to trust them. You know, it's a bit like the drivers walking into the design office and saying to the suspension designer, you know, don't make it too marginal. You know, there's a time where you just mind your own business, and I think that's one of those times.
And actually, I think Norris opened the steering slightly as well as he got to the apex, probably realising that Oscar was coming in. So there's still a level of respect. We've had some great battles, some swapping of positions as well between them. And they've been very fair, very respectful. Obviously, McLaren are twitchy after Canada. They have to be. This time, it's not about 4th and 5th. It's about a slam-dunk race win that they're fighting over. But I agree, they have to trust their drivers to do the job.
Oh, brushing the grass, expecting the gap to be there. If you turn it into a tyre battle, it should be the Ferrari that gets by. And Lewis Hamilton didn't have a lot of room, but eventually climbs to 4th. His teammate, a couple of minutes ago, whilst we were hearing the analysis from David and Jolyon, Charles Leclerc up to 3rd, getting past Lawson, who is yet to stop in the Grand Prix. Hamilton and Alonso into the first turn. Alonso out of the way and over the road as Hamilton went by. This is on board with Oliver Behrman, who's currently in 11th position. Yeah, another driver over the curb, DC.
Yeah, little under rotation there, which just a bit of locking, and that took him wide, generated a bit of understeer. But yeah, that was a good pass by Lewis Hamilton. Tricky to be out on that wide line.
He's got the freshest tyres of anyone in the top 4. He's won just the one time here, back in 2016.
I have no grip. Crazy. I'm about to spin every corner.
That's how it looks.
Yeah, that's what it looked like on the inside of turn 6, as he thought he was going to go sailing off towards the gravel. He's fighting hard, and he's just struggling to keep that top 10 position under pressure from those behind. It's the Haas cars who have struggled for pace so far this weekend, and Gasly, who's been quick so far.
I have no grip. Crazy. I'm about to spin every corner.
And they make contact and they spin. Well, that began at the 3rd turn, and round goes the Alpine, still in the Grand Prix, fighting at turn 3. Tsunoda tried to come back immediately, and Colapinto, having applied the move, spun round at the 4th turn. That could have changed the entire picture for those yet to stop, but in the end, they're both running.
Now, what does that mean under the new guidelines in sporting conduct on the racetrack? You definitely say, as Yuki makes his way to the pits, so he comes late, isn't really alongside. Colapinto opens the steering to give him space, which I think was very fair, and then for whatever reason Yuki just not able to keep himself on that tighter line.
See that one coming a mile off, couldn't you, with Yuki there down the inside with a bit of space, but again not doing enough in the braking zone to get alongside and warrant the space there towards the exit, and just drifting wide to the back of Colapinto, and damage that needed repairing for the only Red Bull in the race. What an awful Grand Prix for them on home soil.
Well, they've had so many days of celebration around here. Max Verstappen is a 5-time winner around this venue. He was the retirement on the opening lap of the race, hit by Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Alex Albon retired, second Williams to go. Carlos Sainz didn't even take the lights for this Grand Prix, and Tsunoda is now running last. There are 6 seconds between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris on the hard tyre. Last time around, Oscar Piastri was 0.2 of a second faster. Flavio Briatore is the acting team principal and permanent executive advisor at Alpine, and reporting directly to the Group Renault board, not employed by the F1 team, but filling in after Ollie Oates departed the team with quick effect earlier in the season.
And this is where the strange thing for Red Bull really takes its effect, doesn't it? You've got one driver that is a master, and okay, he had a bad qualifying yesterday. He was unlucky, really, to be 7th on the grid. But if he's accidentally wiped out on the first lap, they're a tail-end team for the day. The way that they have such a discrepancy between their two drivers, Tsunoda now battling around with a guy in his 5th race for the team at Alpine, having started second last. It's a disaster for Red Bull as soon as they lose their lead driver. There's no other team that suffers in the same way by being such a one-car team.
Gasly and Ocon getting up close and personal. It just feels that it's a matter of which corner Ocon gets the pass on Gasly as he continues his unhappy struggle on those hard tyres.
Piastri quicker by 1/10 of a second in that battle out front, lap 33 of 70. And Ocon surely is going to get past his old rival, former teammate. He's waiting until turn 3. Doesn't fancy it at this moment. He's going to get a great opportunity this time. Gasly with the feedback that wasn't ideal. It's a 10-second time penalty for Yuki Tsunoda for causing a collision. Ocon out of the slipstream and improving again, up to 9th position for him. And Ocon started on the medium tyre, 13-lap-old hards at the moment. We've seen some great stints on the hard tyre for Ocon, who is trying to return to the points again today. Driving 9th in the championship, looking for a 5th point score of the year. Confirmation of that time penalty for Tsunoda.
Yeah, and then, of course, he's had the effective time penalty of changing the nose when he came in. That was a 15-second pit stop, so he is well out of it this afternoon. It's effectively just becoming a test session.
It's nice for these guys further down the field, your Ocons, Gaslys, Bortolettos, that it's a little bit subdued at the front now. Because sometimes I've had Grand Prix where you think, oh, I was in the thick of it, I'm going to be all over the coverage when I get back. And the action has been so good at the sharp end that you're just an absolute passenger in the race, and no one can see all your great moves. But now is a chance for the midfielders to shine as the gap remains 5.5 seconds out front. All we wanted to see was McLaren for 25 laps, wasn't it? Piastri's nudging the gap down. It went up to as much as 6.5 seconds. It's now just less than 5.5 seconds. But I wonder if he's thinking he can maybe do a 1-stop, whereas Norris is heading towards a 2, if that's an option that he can take, because he's not taking enough time out of Lando. He had the option of being 1.5 seconds back or 4 seconds back. 6.5 was a bad result, but the only reason to take the bigger gap is to have a nice charge back up towards the race lead, and he's not doing that much right now.
I like the idea of that, because there's right now, as you say, he's not making enough headway to make it appear as if he's got a significant advantage. He may be able to go a bit longer as the fresher tyres, but if he's able to hang on, he's not really under any pressure, it would appear, from Leclerc. And if he does start to come under pressure, he can always pit anyway, because Leclerc's going to do another one. So I like that, Julian.
Cue the fastest lap, as I said it, for Oscar Piastri. But it still stands, 5.5 seconds between the McLarens. And yeah, it's an option that he's got to try and do something different on strategy. If McLaren are allowed to race each other on track, they're allowed to race each other off track as well and on the pit wall. And possibly Oscar can just look after those tyres a little better and think about doing the different strategy.
Oliver Behrman, the latest driver to go past Gasly, who is trying the up and under. Gasly might not have the overall pace here today, but he's refusing to give it up. 22-lap-old hard tyres. And Gasly fighting for every inch of the racetrack. So story of the Grand Prix so far, as Gasly lights up those rear tyres as a visual illustration of the lack of grip that he's got, is Sainz had brakes that seized and caught fire. He retired before the lights. Andrea Kimi Antonelli avoided a racing ball, hit the Red Bull of Max Verstappen.
Turkey, something's broken, it's crazy. I don't know much more I can say on track.
Yeah, understood, mate. We're working on it. Okay, stick with it, please.
So Gasly continues the negative feedback for the handling, similar to what we heard from Carlos Sainz yesterday. Alex Albon retired as well. The second Williams went.
Taking something's broken, it's crazy. I don't know how much more longer I can stay on track.
Yeah, understood, mate. We're working on it. Okay, stick with it, please.
That's the story of the race so far. We continue it now with Isaac Hadjar, who is chasing down Franco Colapinto, and he's going to the inside. How much grip is there? Enough for him to get by. You just don't know. In the support races, it's been incident after incident after incident, but Hadjar had a car's width and took it.
Yeah, clean racing from them both. It looked like it was a thought, and then he was like, it's not on, and then as an afterthought, he's down the inside. But Colapinto aware, probably hyper aware actually, having following that contact with Tsunoda earlier. You can imagine, he had a bit of a smashing time at Williams. He just wants to be bringing the car home.
I think Gasly's feeling the same in the other Alpine as well at the moment. Gasly's actually on fresher tyres than Behrman, who's just swamped him and struggling. So it looks like there may well be something broken on his Alpine to be having such a miserable time. You could see the thought process playing out live, couldn't you, with Hadjar there up towards turn 3? Should I go outside? No, maybe inside. No, maybe not. Oh, go on then. And finally makes the pass. Nice bit of racing between them.
Yeah, it was indeed. Kept it clean. And we just saw there Lando Norris hanging out over the curb on the exit of turn 7. That's a big risk for him to be taking. So that would rather suggest that he's running these tyres as hard as he can. 9.7 last time around for him, 9.4 for Piastri, who's just, as you said earlier, Julian, just nibbling that gap down to 5.2.
But we're talking hundredths per lap at the moment. It's on average just sneaking down, but it's gone from 6.5 to 5.3 in 13 laps now for Piastri, so it's not quite enough unless he's looking after the tyres for a charge later on. I have to say I was very surprised, considering the pace that Norris has had this weekend. Every time he's been on track, he's looked like he's had the measure of his teammate, but yet in that first stint, it was like he had lucked his way to pole, wasn't it? It was like he was on pole but didn't have the pace with the way that Oscar was just piling on the pressure.
Yeah, two different disciplines altogether, getting everything together for one lap and then managing tyres throughout the Grand Prix. There's no evidence on Lando's previous races that he has an issue doing it, but certainly that first stint. And sometimes, Julian, as you know, just that set of tyres, you know, an individual set of tyres just feels a bit different, a bit off, and it just wasn't quite giving him the confidence.
And he never broke the DRS, did he? So every single lap he had his teammate getting back towards him, and even if it was almost 1 second at the final detection point, he never broke it. So that 7/10 was always coming Oscar's way, and at that point you can never breathe. This is such a short lap.
Most of those blue flags are doing mid to high 1/10, so there's opportunity approaching.
Yeah, and Piastri immediately responds with a lap half a second quicker than Lando Norris.
It's Norris's pace dropping on the last lap. So is that a sign of the tyres going, or was there a small mistake in there? He hasn't yet caught the blue flags. That's going to be Stroll and Colapinto first. Tsunoda already a lap down after his pit stop woes.
On board with Liam.
Most of those blue flags are doing mid to high 1/10, so there's opportunity approaching.
Norris's pace is now dropping. He's done a slower lap this time around. It's another half a second to Piastri. So maybe Lando was just giving it a bit too much to keep the gap where it was, and now Oscar's starting to reap the rewards of a bit of patience early on in this stint. And for good measure, Norris is catching this little battle.
So Lance Stroll is in 13th, Franco Colapinto in 14th. The drivers that you're looking at are mandated by the rule book to get out of the way by the blue flag for those at the head of the race. That is there. You can only ignore 3 of them, but you have got a driver in Colapinto who hasn't yet done a full season and has had the experience of being spun round earlier on, using all of the road, as Lando Norris comes up to lap.
Not good part of the circuit for Norris to find the blue flags as well. Difficult for the drivers to let him through at 6 and 7. Colapinto should jump out of the way here, and he He's going to come into the pits, which is even worse.
That is worse, isn't it? Because he's got the right to take his apex, but he's doing it at much slower speed. So let's just see what the damage in the lap time. Oh, wow.
That is a hugely consequential moment because it's just a quirk of the racetrack. That's where you peel into the pit lane. You have to scrub off the speed. Franco Colapinto coming in after being passed by the Aston Martin, and it cost him the gap of 4.3 down to 3.3, and Piastri is reeling in his rival for the title.
Yeah, this is in a few laps' time going to get interesting. Quite a 2, 3, 4 laps before he's going to get some more traffic. Well, actually a bit sooner than that, isn't he? He's got that Aston right in front of him. Where you get the traffic is just completely random, of course.
Yeah, 1 second. He's been taking hundredths and hundredths, then half a second chunks, and then the full second there on lap 40 as Norris caught Colapinto coming into the pits, and suddenly Piastri can now sense this is his time to go. And Norris will be able to look in the mirrors and see a flash of papaya there as well, and he'll know, oh no, it's back on, I've got to take some heat once again.
Yeah, well, if this had been the colour of these cars back when I was racing, I wouldn't have.
Hey, people are starting to pit. We're doing our race. Your pace is still good.
Bear in mind, there's always a risk passing everyone, like you saw.
Understood.
True. Well, I guess if they've taken the time to give Piastri a warning on his attempt to overtake when they were well separated, I suspect they might get on the blower again before he gets anywhere close to engaging with Norris, which I think would be hard because you want to let these guys get on with the racing.
But this time he's got a bigger tyre advantage, and I think if Piastri can get closer, he'll have a better chance to pass. And this is all about the patience and the choice he was given on the team radio. Do you want to drop back and then have a bigger tyre advantage? He's taken that choice, and now when he gets there, he will have more grip, which he didn't have when they both started on new mediums at the start of the race. I would have thought when Piastri gets close, Norris will pit and take a second stop and gun it to the end, and then it would be a choice for Oscar if he wants to do a 2-stop, or if he wants to try and hold out for a 1.
Yeah, it's a long way to go, but I don't think he's but the evidence here, he's not going to beat Norris on his individual pace, so he's got to try and do something different.
Well, big decisions, because this feels like a Grand Prix that by the end of the year we will list as hugely important to the destination for who becomes, if it is to be a new driver. And Max Verstappen is out today after clawing 10 points, after clawing more points back. 18 he scored up against Lando Norris in the last Grand Prix to make it a 3-car battle for the title.
Is he just quicker everywhere now? Or?
He's mainly quicker in high speed. We'll just see with this loss of traffic.
But we've only had 34 world champions in the history of Formula One. Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris know that it is turning into an exclusive battle between the McLaren pair. But what tone in the radio?
Is he just quicker everywhere now? Or?
He's mainly quicker in high speed. We'll just see with this loss of traffic.
Weekend, the spring in his step from the moment he jumped into the car in FP2, it seems to have gone from him now as he realises that I think today Piastri is the quicker McLaren driver, but Norris has the track position, so he's just got to keep it. The gap goes up on this lap as Piastri gets a little bit stuck there behind Stroll.
And our goal here is obvious, we just keep Oscar out of our DRS.
Stroll puts a lap on him. The gap has remained at 3.3. A brilliant battle earlier on, not just because they were close, not just because they were racing each other again after what happened in Canada, but because you could see from the trackside cameras how much of the road they were using to push each other further and further and faster. And Lando Norris is trying to improve back to the top step for the 3rd time this year. His teammate has 5 wins, and Lando Norris knows that this is a massively important stint in his quest to be the world champion.
Hulkenberg coming out of the pits right in between them is a nice thing for Norris as well here, because actually Hulkenberg's come out on some fresh mediums and he's not going to be too slow at this stage. He's not going to be that easy to lap for Piastri, who's now on 20-lap-old hard tyres. So he will get the blue flags at some point, but it's going to be just a distraction for Piastri, who only wants to look up and see the race leader. Passing lap cars is never a nice thing to have to do.
Yeah, it just feels that Piastri might be on that declining phase of the tyre now, because even with DRS pass on the Aston of Stroll, his lap time was actually a tenth slower than Norris.
And actually, Norris has picked up his own pace slightly as well. He had those 2 laps where he dropped away, and now he's managed to stabilise a little bit closer to his personal best, which is a 1 minute 9.3. He's on a 1 minute 9.6 on the last lap. Piastri still holds the fastest lap of the race, which was just under a 1 minute 9.2. So they've been fairly evenly matched, but Piastri's consistency of just being a little bit quicker with those 2 half-second punches, and then the 1 second Colapinto moment as well has brought him back to 3.5 seconds away. But the gap's just settled down again.
Little adjustment on his steering wheel there as he continues to manage his race. He can see his teammate up ahead, and his teammate, even though the mirrors are very small, as you mentioned, Julian, he'll be able to glance in it and he'll get the information on his pit board as to his lead, and a wee check of his mirrors will show his teammate hunting him down.
Yeah, last time around, Norris faster than Piastri. The gap that was as low as 3.3 is now 3.7. Then we tick down to the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton is 6 seconds further back. Let's give you a live speed as we climb the hill. George Russell's being brought in for his second stop. He was first of the top 5 to pit earlier on, all the way up to 180 miles per hour by the time you apply the brakes into turn 3.
Yeah, so what's a bit frustrating for Piastri here is Hulkenberg is running just half a second slower than Norris on his fresh mediums. The Sauber's a quick car. Bortoletto's still 6th in the Grand Prix. And on fresh tyres, Piastri's not much quicker, only 4/10 quicker than Hulkenberg. But he's now picking up a little bit of dirty air from the Sauber as well, so he's just having his progress stifled. He's not close enough that Hulkenberg's getting the blue flags, but in fact, I think Miko's just got his first blue flag now, but the gap has been going out, and it's just been a bit of unlucky timing this time for Piastri.
Well, we're not seeing a lot of the others on track, Leclerc and Hamilton. You would say Hamilton's having a better Grand Prix weekend relative to Leclerc as a whole. He's running on his own, but only 6 seconds behind Leclerc. And I think the Ferrari, if it remains like this, will feel this has been a much stronger weekend.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton was really encouraged with the performance. He was saying operationally they were excellent. You're looking at George Russell on fresher rubber going past Isaac Hadjar. That's for 9th position. But Hamilton was buoyant if you consider that it was only a 4th position on the grid. He was very happy with the team's performance, calling it a step forward, and he is hoping for a strong final stint, trying to contend for his first Ferrari Grand Prix podium.
George Russell is almost a lap down today. If the camera shot was wide enough, you'd see Lando Norris coming in the background behind these two. The crest will probably just stop that right now, but he's 9th place he's made a second stop, so he's made an extra pit stop, but really distant is the Grand Prix winner from last time out. Piastri's now cleared Hulkenberg behind as well, so that's back to a straight fight with no back marker distractions for the moment. And yeah, Hamilton's having a good drive, isn't he? Hit the groundhog in Canada. We didn't have a fair comparison of what he might have done, and you never know when you're talking about points of downforce lost. How much is that? How much does it shift the balance? And as a driver, you're questioning it as well. You know the logic of this is sort of 4/10 per lap, but I'd love to just see the 4/10 per lap and not trying to hope that it was at least that, or maybe it was a little bit more, possibly it was a little bit less. Today, it's just been a straight fight, Leclerc and Hamilton out there, and it's slightly advantaged Leclerc, but considering Charles had the advantage this year so far, it's been a much closer weekend for Hamilton.
On board, nose cam for Hamilton. He's now 7.1 seconds away from, whoa, off the road we go. Braking doesn't go to plan, rejoin the roads, and more time lost. Now 8.5 seconds behind his teammate. Bortoletto running in 5th position, still needs to make his stop. His second one, he's only run the medium tyre so far in this Grand Prix. This is the World Championship leader in 2nd position. The correction, the curb, and running off the road at turn 1.
Yeah, correction for Oversteer as he brakes into the corner. And, well, the tail wind there has just caught him out. It's complete opposite wind direction as we get the replay of Lewis Hamilton up at turn 3. It's a complete opposite wind direction than we saw in qualifying yesterday.
Yeah, the rear is starting to feel some pain as well for Piastri. 24 laps on that hard tyre. It's a reasonable way he's taking it. Norris, of course, taking it further by pitting earlier. As Behrman has a bit of a lunge.
Ollie Behrman able to get past Lance Stroll and move up to 12th position. Behrman, who's looking for a return to the points. He hasn't been in the points since the Bahrain Grand Prix. 4th round of the year. This is the 11th round of the World Championship in 2025. And at the moment, Lando Norris is taking 7 points out of Piastri's lead.
So Lando, now that Oscar's got free air, his pace and high speed has recovered a bit. Obviously, as we get close to Hajjar, it's going to get tough again. Still doing a good job.
Piastri went for deliberate tactics at the start of the Grand Prix.
So Lando, now that Oscar's got free air, his pace and high speed has recovered a bit. Obviously, as we get close to Hajjar, it's going to get tough again. Still doing a good job.
But that is not straightforward through the first turn.
It's so nice to see all of the drivers fighting the cars, though. Nothing looks easy to drive. That first stint was just amazing to watch. The two nose to tail and scrabbling around for rear grip. We've seen Piastri lose it on the way into turn 1. Norris fighting it through the apex of turn 1. Leclerc gets off his hard tyres, which had done fewer laps than the McLarens are on. So Ferrari locking in that two-stopper right now. Surely McLaren will pit at some point soon. Although they're really just in a fight of their own at the moment.
Yeah, Leclerc comes out into complete clean air. His teammate Hamilton's up at turn 3, so when he pits, he'll drop behind him. And then you've got to go all the way down to Ocon, who's just passing the start-finish now. So Leclerc's going to be singing all by myself.
A strange, lonely race for him, but he'll be happy if it ends in a podium. Bortoleto, big pit stop in his Formula 1 career. And for Sauber, trying to score points with both cars. They're pumped up to be back in contention for points in Formula 1. 2.2 seconds.
Yeah, what a stop. It's going right for Sauber at the moment.
You can certainly tell that Jonathan Wheatley has taken over as team principal there. Their pit stops that were farcical a year ago are now rapid.
Is my pace really bad? Because the tyres are fine.
And we box now for fastest race, optimal race.
Yeah, my tyres are okay. Can I extend? How many more laps left?
And box 20 laps.
I don't want to stop. 20 laps left.
Box.
So I think someone might need to tell Ferrari at some point, it's not necessarily about the fastest race, it's about the best position at the end.
There's an idea.
But the way they pitted Leclerc in Canada was about taking the fastest race, but they took out any chance of finishing higher.
Is my pace really bad? Because the tyres are fine.
And we box now for fastest race, optimal race.
Yeah, my tyres are okay. Can I extend? How many more laps left?
And box 20 laps.
I don't want to stop. 20
and
laps
box.
left.
Box.
Whether he'll hit the cliff, as we used to refer it in days gone by for Pirelli, but he couldn't have been any clearer that he wanted to stay out.
And why pit? Hamilton will now finish 4th in this race. If he stays out and there's a red flag or a safety car, he might do better. And this is exactly the same thing as befell Leclerc in Canada. It's the fastest race, but try and finish higher. Don't worry about your race time. Don't worry about your race position.
Maybe you're just being too optimistic. You know, always looking on what the potential
Have
might
a little
be.
hope.
Yes, exactly. My word, it was you guys against positive thinking yesterday. We've had a sea change into Grand Prix Sunday. We're against the negative approach today. Lando Norris was all over the road on the exit of turn 4. He is still giving it everything because Piastri is about to bring the fight. Are we going to see a replay of what we saw last year, where the Grand Prix had some excitement at the start? We had a cycle through the pit stops, and then at the end it all came alive. High pressure pit stop from McLaren. They were slightly slow with both cars last time around. The race leader is in for a defining pit stop.
Was that message that was put on the screen, did it say this is a Germany situation?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so just delve into your memory banks then. What was that situation?
I'm trying to. They have referenced it before.
Maybe it's just code.
Yeah, they do like that code. They have mentioned it before. I'll cycle through the memory banks, DC.
You'll get some clearer air. Let's use the pace. We should be in at the end of this lap. You'll get some clearer air. Let's use the pace. We should be in at the end of this lap.
Needed out lap, which Piastri would have really loved on his in lap. It wouldn't have been enough to jump him with the used tyre now, but might have brought him out closer after Oscar's stop, which should be in a few corners' time.
So on board with Oscar Piastri. Germany situation is, we believe, code for extend and wait for the safety car. So the issue that Jolyon was talking about, you're going to finish in fourth with Lewis Hamilton. And they've referenced that before, but that is code by McLaren. And they write that reference on the radio. It's like 53 of 17. Here comes the final stop for Oscar Piastri. Back into the Grand Prix. Norris with the fastest middle sector of anyone so far. You're on board with him on the left-hand side of your screen. Norris will retake the lead. Piastri stop, though, 2 seconds. That is far more what McLaren were looking for. And Piastri will try and clear these two. He won't. And so he'll have to get past, lap the traffic, and then he goes hunting for the Grand Prix win. The gap remains at 3.3.
Yeah, nice to get a bit of a slipstream if he can get a pass done before he go into 4. But these guys are battling. But it looks like Yuki was trying to get out of the way, and then he was back in the way.
Tsunoda and Colapinto forces Oscar Piastri onto the grass at high speed. The battle further back in the pack, nearly interrupting the first two in the race.
Get out of the way. You're fighting with the race leaders. This is ridiculous for Tsunoda and Colapinto. They're having their own battle for 15th place, having already collided today.
Do you remember when Lando Norris Colapinto peeled into the pits? And it was Colapinto, and the gap went from 4.3 seconds down to 3.3. Well, this is how it went from 3.3 to 4.3 again.
So I thought Yuki was taking a wide line because he knew that was Oscar there, and then he cuts back across the front of him, and then Colapinto must have been completely unsighted. So I can't see how he can get away without some sort of penalty for that. You can't drive someone off the track.
It's woeful, isn't it? You can't drive someone off the track and you're a lap down. You're not even racing him. He's unaware of what's going on, but he had the McLaren behind him coming into the corner. I can excuse Yuki a little bit more, who might not have seen 2 cars back, but Franco Colapinto really should have seen the guy fighting for the race lead right there. But you know what? There was an incident in Barcelona with Liam Lawson and Ollie Behrman where Lando Norris and Max Verstappen were held up quite badly, and there was no punishment for Lawson for what was a terrible bit of impeding the race leaders. And I think the FIA for a while have been quite lenient on this, so drivers feel empowered to go hunting down a rival for 14th when you've got a race leader coming through, which has to be the priority.
Yeah, totally unacceptable. If you're a lap down, then you've got to get out of the way. The rules are the rules. Now, what is George Russell getting a nice braking down the inside there? But what's also a little bit confusing, he may not have looked at his mirrors to have seen that Oscar was there, but the race engineers should have made them aware. Said that, guy fighting for the lead in second place has just come out of the pit lane behind you on fresh tyres.
And it motivated Oscar Piastri, who's just on the fastest final sector of anyone so far. Rapid pace last time around. That gap is already back down to the second that he lost.
Yeah, really quick lap. Norris less so, as he had to put a lap on Pierre Gasly.
There's party time continuing between Tsunoda and Colapinto. And Colapinto gave him a friendly wave on the way through as well. Those two having 2 key moments. Second one nearly influencing the outcome of the Grand Prix win.
So this was a fun start to the race. We got quite a fun end to the race now as well. We're back on the medium tyres, and this can now just be a flat-out thrash to the end. These tyres will be fine. The new mediums for both Norris and Piastri. They've got the similar distance to what they had at the start when they were sliding around on them, pushing, giving it everything. And now it's battle resumed, 3 seconds between them. So Piastri's got work to do, but if he's got the pace, he can go and use it. Yeah,
he's got Gasly just in front of him as he comes out onto the start-finish straight, so he will probably get the pass done up into turn 1, or will he take advantage of a slipstream in DRS and the run up to turn 3?
Bortoleto going past the driver that he beat to the title last year in Formula 2. Bortoleto, who got his first F2 win here, is a champion of Formula 3 and Formula 2. He's now in possession of 8th position. He's had a great run so far this weekend, and he will be ticking off the laps between him and his first point score in Formula 1. Fernando Alonso is the driver ahead of him, He's done the one stop so far, 22 lap-old hard tyres for Alonso, and he's making his way around the 10th and final corner at the moment, chasing down Liam Lawson, who did have the advantage of a few seconds, and that advantage has eroded over the last couple of laps. Alonso within DRS, it's why we join him on board at the moment, racing bulls against Aston Martin. It's an expected 5-second time penalty for Franco Colapinto for forcing another driver off the track.
I'd say that's the least that Colapinto deserved there for just a bit of oblivion. Sort me out there.
You're normally the cunning linguist.
I've lost it, DC.
I can't believe that you're searching for words. I'm doing that daily.
Help me out, please, DC.
Well, he needs to use those little things strapped to the side of the car called mirrors, which has got about 15 hours the way I say it.
The vocab chat continues, and Colapinto, he's got the 5-second penalty. Tsunoda's got the 10-second penalty for spinning around the Argentine driver earlier on. The top 5 have all made their second and final stops. It's a one-stop race for Lawson and Alonso. You're looking at that battle at the moment. Lawson for looking for just his second point score of the season so far, and Alonso wants to keep that run going. Alonso, who started today in 11th position. This is an overtake for Nico Hülkenberg. Sauber have turned the page on a tough couple of years. The team that will become Audi, both cars in the points right now.
Hunting in packs, those two, aren't they?
Yeah, they're not too far apart on track. So this is a really, well, it's been a strong weekend for Bortoleto, full stop, and it's been a good comeback from Hülkenberg after the disappointment of qualifying. And
they should get back to Lawson and Alonso here for a potential 6th and 7th. These two are one-stopping. The Saubers have done 2 pit stops.
Esteban Ocon drifting one to the inside of Isaac Hadjar. Hadjar on that one stop on fading rubber, and Ocon on 7-lap-old hard tyres has the place, has the point, and he's 2.2 seconds away from Hülkenberg, who was chasing down his teammate Hülkenberg, who started on the soft, went to the medium, he's gone to another medium tyre. He's up 11 places in the Grand Prix, and he did say he had more pace in the car yesterday. He's proved it today.
His qualifyings haven't actually been very good this year.
No.
He's been...
Not by the standard of last year, where he was consistently in the top 10.
The standard of him in his career. You know, he's historically a rapid driver over one lap, but this year it's sort of gone away. But his races have been amazing, coming through from the back of the grid and looking like he's going to get another point score.
Talking of rapid over one lap, this is a scorching lap from Oscar Piastri. Fastest in the first sector, the second sector, and he comes over the line. The gap is 2.6 seconds.
Yeah, he got the advantage of DRS in that first sector of Behrman, and he's decided to use that around the rest of the lap. So this is now the hurry-up time for Norris, isn't it? He's got plenty of experience at the beginning of the race of managing Piastri in his DRS zone, but he can't afford a mistake now, otherwise that's exactly what he's going to have again.
Look at the traffic he's got coming up there. It's Hadjar, then it's Ocon, Hülkenberg and Bortoleto. He may need to clear them all before the end of the race, and Piastri will be licking his lips at that.
So Fernando Alonso remains within a second of Liam Lawson. The Saubers are much quicker than Fernando Alonso. They're reeling him in, but we're going to get a second act in the McLaren battle for the lead. On hard tyres, Lando Norris seemed comfortable. On mediums, like the start of the Grand Prix, Piastri is just able to extract so much performance, and the gap is now 2 seconds as they come across the line on lap 61 of 70.
And again, oh sorry Julian, I was going to say, and again he's going to get a slipstream of DRS from Hadjar.
Yeah, he wasn't the kindest, was he, at turn 7. It's a difficult place to let anyone through, though. He's struggling for performance, Hadjar, and as soon as he got through 7, got out of the way, it's better for Piastri. That was nice timing, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's worked well. Some more traffic ahead. Ocon, Hülkenberg and Bortoleto are all going to come into play for Norris. He doesn't have the sort of benefit of a nice big lead where he can just manage out this Grand Prix. He's got to push it.
Well, last year it was Oscar Piastri's moment at that corner. Let's hear from Norris.
Ready some pace, please help. And the main pace difference right now is high speed, hopefully linked just to traffic.
Yeah, they get all the data, they get it real time, and they can analyse exactly how the two drivers are performing. It's incredible, actually, just how much you sort of spy in the cab, isn't it? It's complete feedback on your
I need some pace. Please help.
And the main pace difference right now is high speed, hopefully linked just to traffic.
How is that going to be affecting the handling and performance for Lando Norris?
Well, it's a difficult thing when you're being told where to go and find the time. Of course, it's useful, but then you've got to go and do it yourself. And doing that in the high speed, so we're about to find the high-speed corners and the exit of this one. This is the final low-speed turn at 4, and he's wide at the apex here. He's got the car ahead. Is he going to jump out of the way?
He does, but it might affect Piastri, so he pulls back in the line. Piastri's going to pick up a distant bit of dirty air through 7, and then, well, this isn't as good for Piastri this time, but he's been quite fortunate with the traffic.
Yeah, and the dirty air just makes the car feel floatier. You just don't feel like you're as glued to the road, just struggling a little bit for front end on turn in. The rear downforce is going away as well. And the Formula 1 car now, lower fuel, new medium tyres, should be feeling fairly hooked up. And the whole thing just feels like you've got a couple of % less downforce and less grip, effectively, when you're at the wheel. And it's much easier to make mistakes, easier to overheat the tyres as well in that window. So the gap is 1.7 seconds. The good thing for Norris in this case is if he was fighting a Verstappen right now, you haven't got as much detail on the opposition. But because you've got all the data, the hundreds of telemetry channels available on Oscar's car and his driving, that can be fed straight back by a race engineer to Lando Norris at the wheel. And so they've got that information, high speed, but potentially it's just traffic for Norris. But Piastri's had a good run through the traffic so far.
Yeah, and just to put our audience in the cockpit, we're late in the Grand Prix. These guys have probably lost a good kilo to 2 kilos of body weight just from fluid loss. They will have a drink system in the car, so they're taking some back on. But as you get hotter and later in a Grand Prix, your concentration becomes challenged. And at this stage, I would say this is a bigger sort of psychological battle for Norris, where he knows at this stage of the race, so close to the end, one mistake can take away that victory.
He's got to keep putting in the laps, because one mistake will put Piastri back within the DRS range, and then it's relentless pressure to the checkered flag. Another car ahead for him, Nico Hülkenberg, he's just starting to lose pace on the medium tyres he bolted on 20 laps ago. He's going to the end, doesn't want to lose any time by getting out of the way to Norris, but of course we'll have to make way for the race leaders. Experienced head and should jump out of the way right here. That might not work out well for Piastri.
Lando, just for your awareness, we have a bit of damage on our front wing, which is making the balance change a bit. Nothing we can do, just for your awareness.
Yeah, that can only come from having run off track somewhere, and we've not seen them have any.
Lando, just for your awareness, we have a bit of damage on our front wing, which is making the balance change a bit. Nothing we can do, just for your awareness.
Cars, there's no question, the rumble strip, the gravel, and we've seen all the way through qualifying various cars being patched up with silver tape. They can't do that, of course, during the Grand Prix.
I don't know if I'd want to tell him that. With 5 laps to go and a 2-second gap, knowing now that your car's got damage, it must be small damage, but carrying that in your mind, thinking, oh no, I'm driving a hobbled car now, I've got my teammate back on my tail, he's cleared Hülkenberg, and it's a straight fight now, potentially to the flag. They might catch some more back markers right on the final lap, but I don't want to know that really if I'm Norris, unless it's going to be suddenly spewing the car into massive oversteer like Gasly was complaining of. If it's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, I'll just deal with it for 5 laps.
Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe they need to counterbalance it by sending him some positivity. You're a handsome man, you're a multi-millionaire, you're driving one of the best cars in Formula 1, and you're leading.
And he's getting closer and closer and closer to his first win in the Austrian Grand Prix, and a win today would tie with Oscar Piastri. Piastri has 7 wins in Formula 1, Norris has 6. Norris had that breakthrough moment. Piastri has had the form in 2025. We have seen Grand Prix settled on the last lap here in the past. The battle between Nico Rosberg. Look at how much Piastri is trying all over the curb. through the exit of the first chicane as we have 5 laps to go. But it was this corner back in 2016. It was Mercedes versus Mercedes then. Now in 2025, McLaren versus McLaren. Crucially, here's the question. As Lando Norris on the racetrack gets closer and closer to Bortoleto, and the battle between Bortoleto, Alonso and Lawson that could be 3 cars line astern, can Piastri get back to a second? Can he get within DRS and give us a second grandstand finish for the Austrian Grand Prix in a row?
So Bortoletto's going to catch Alonso and Lawson, which is going to slow them all up back towards the race leader, and that's got to be Piastri's hope. Norris just getting over the top of that sausage curve there at the exit of turn 3 on that last lap.
Yeah, he's pushing. As I say, I laugh because I'm thinking to myself, well, are you surprised? But it's just confirmation that he's not sort of stroking it home. He is on the edge.
And this entire race for the McLaren team will have been on the edge. They know that they have the most effective car. Sometimes temperature can change the game. They're coming off the back of their worst Grand Prix of the year. As Lando Norris again gets all over that curb on the exit of 3. They missed out on the podium for the first time as a team at the last race. They are 1 and 2 as it stands. Lap 67 of 70. The gap is 1.9 seconds. Oliver Behrman is up against Isaac Hadjar. That's the battle in the left-hand side of your screen. Both of those drivers out of the points.
And Lando, you need corner discipline. Turn 1, turn 3. Pace and high speed is good.
So I think that might have been a result of that wide moment. We get that radio, he's been reminded, no need to use all of the curbs, but he knows the pressure that Piastri can bring.
And Lando, you need corner discipline. Turn 1, turn 3. Pace and high speed is good.
Line racing for serious points if you consider the context of all of their seasons so far. Bortoleto has the freshest tyres, but he's currently P8. We're going to climb the hill all the way up to the 30 metres, and he finds himself standing on the brakes. He knows he's got the tyre advantage, and the reigning Formula 2 champion is hunting down Fernando Alonso, who's part of his management team. What a weekend Bortoleto is having. Can he find his way by? You can see the state of Alonso's tyres. They're not in the best nick.
You know, Alonso a little bit wider there in 4, but it's just a question of when Bortoleto, I think we joined him as Bortoleto loses downforce in 6, and you see a double correction, so he's dropped back a bit. But I think when we joined him on the onboard earlier, he'd had an attempt with Alonso into turn 1 and bailed out of it, which delayed his attack. But he's just going to have a bit of patience and wait until the exit of turn 1.
He was careful at turn 3 there as well on that last lap, and well, look how quickly Norris is catching this battle as well. Bortoleto close up towards turn 1, but you don't want to pass there because you'll just be eaten up on the exit on the run up towards turn 3. This is going to be your better chance now with Bortoleto. They want to catch Lawson. Bortoleto wants to catch Lawson up the road in the white RB there, who's having the race of his life.
Yeah, you see Yuki Tsunoda getting well out of the way of that battle, getting laps as here comes the battle continues all the way down to 4.
The dive bomb move from Bortoleto. Alonso's got the longest ever Formula 1 career. He saw that one coming and retook the place. That was pure racecraft up against Pirelli tyre grip. But these corners, it's all about the traction that you've got. How brave is Bortoleto feeling? And that door was always going to close. Lando Norris will be right with this pair now. Lando Norris does not want these two scrapping ahead. The gap is 1.5, 1.4. It'll be 1.3 as Bortoleto is restricted to Fernando Alonso's pace. And now he has to get out of the way. That was the engine note that you heard as he pulls out of the way of our race leader. Fernando Alonso is ahead. He'll have to do the same. And then Lando Norris will get a little bit of clear racetrack.
Yeah, this might neutralise out the fact that now Lando's going to get DRS off the back of Fernando. Oscar already with DRS off the back of Bortoleto. So I think when this sort of settles itself, depending on how long it takes Piastri to get past Alonso, then that gap is just going to be hovering tantalisingly close to Oscar being in DRS distance of his teammate.
He's being held up there behind Bortoleto, who's let one McLaren go, but really could do with letting the other one go as well. But they're racing Norris.
They're racing Norris back, and Alonso thinking about, you're allowed to unlap yourself. There's nothing against that in the rules.
Oh, Oscar wide.
And a lock-up for Oscar Piastri will end it as a contest. The lap cars have played their part today. It was a brilliant effort from Oscar Piastri, taking the charge to Lando Norris early on. But at the end of the Grand Prix, there's enough of a buffer, and Lando Norris is nearly home. The resistance is complete. Piastri asked so many questions, and Lando had the answers. The British driver comes out of the final corner. Lando Norris wins the Austrian Grand Prix in a massive result for the World Championship. He kept his teammate at bay. Over the line further back, Alonso beat Bortoleto to 7th position. Hülkenberg was in 9th and Ocon in 10th. It's a McLaren 1-2. Norris has won the Grand Prix by 2.6 seconds. Charles Leclerc completes the podium, and we had a great battle at the start. We didn't get that grandstand finish at the end, Jolien.
It was hard work, though. It was hard work for Norris to get there. The traffic just makes things so uncomfortable here. If you catch drivers in the first half of the lap, you're sailing. With DRS, you're breezing away. If you catch them in the second half of the lap, you're compromised. But Piastri was stuck the whole lap there behind Bortoleto. I don't think he had enough laps anyway to do it at the end. What a race. What a race. This is what we want to see. Two drivers evenly matched, going at it for 70 laps. The first 20 were breathtaking. The last 10, it was never up. And Norris, in the end, did well. The job was done, number one, in qualifying. Number two, absorbing that pressure in the first stint. The time where they swapped places, and then he managed to get it back again. Taking all of that and coming out on top. Well done, Lando Norris.
Well done, mate. Well done. Great job.
Yeah, well done, everyone. Beautiful 1-2. Car was great. Finish. Thanks, everyone. Amazing work. Just keep it up.
I agree, mate. Well done, mate. Well done. Great job.
Yeah, well done, everyone. Beautiful 1-2. Car was great. Finish. Thanks, everyone. Amazing work. Just keep it up.
I agree, mate. Follow the process.
Piastri, Charles Leclerc completes the podium. 4th place for Lewis Hamilton. 5th for George Russell. A career best P6 for Liam Lawson.
Yeah, sorry for the... yeah, sorry for the move in turn 4. My bad.
Points in Formula One for Gabriel Bortoleto, who's had a great weekend and has something to show for it as well. He leaves with 4 points in Formula One.
And a lesson in racecraft from Fernando Alonso right at the end as well. What a job from Alonso to hold him back and also allow Liam Lawson the breathing space ahead. But fantastic weekend from Bortoleto. Double points for Sauber. Haas getting a point out of that as well with Esteban Ocon. But it's all about this pair. From this race, and I think from this race on, I don't see Verstappen coming back from it now. He's always a threat, but unlucky today, Verstappen and McLaren surely are going to have a showdown in the remaining races. And if this is anything to go by, it's going to be an exhilarating showdown at that.
You have to say kudos to McLaren for letting them race as well. At the racetrack where we saw the most controversial team order in the history of the sport. It was just wonderful, those opening 20 laps. And Lando Norris is out of the car. Yep, remembers to celebrate. He's won the Grand Prix for the 7th time in his career. Oscar Piastri was so frustrated. Oh, there we are. They did finally crash into each other, just thankfully after the checkered flag.
He looks like he's been through it as well, doesn't he, Norris? Including the contact at the end, but just the adrenaline, the heart rate, the physicality of driving 70 laps, stressed and on the limit, is something.
What a lovely moment. There's a couple of years ago that Fernando Alonso stood underneath a Formula 3 podium and applauded Gabriel Bortoleto. A couple of years on, Bortoleto's got the F3 title, the F2 title, and he celebrates his first points in Formula 1 with a hug from one of his management team and the man who beat him to 7th place.
It's great to see an F2 champ moving up to F1 and getting these sort of weekends in, getting big points, 4 on the board. We've seen his 1 lap pace so far this year, but this was quite an incredible weekend from Bortoleto. and certainly the signs of a lot more in there for the young Brazilian. He's got a lot of friends in high places as well, hasn't he? A little bit of a slipstream for Max Verstappen in qualifying yesterday, and no help from Fernando Alonso today, but a nice hug.
Yeah, half a second between those two across the line. Oscar Piastri thanks his team. Been a roasting weekend in Austria. They had some very heavy rain on the Thursday, but since then, hot and sweaty work. And Lando Norris says thank you very much to those who work on his car. And McLaren take a 1-2, but there were a couple of corners in that Grand Prix where even finishing was up in the air.
Yeah. But that's what we love about it. This is what Formula One is about. The best drivers out there fighting for a win and barely giving an inch, but there was just enough in the crucial times between them. Charles Leclerc, by the way, was on the podium. Remember Ferrari in this race, 3rd and 4th? Hamilton looking on 9 seconds away from Leclerc at the end of that. I think is an admirable effort for Hamilton. It's not his absolute best just yet, but he's getting closer with a clean weekend. And Leclerc putting it together, a little smile with 3rd place, but they're not close enough to fight with McLaren at the moment.
Let's hear from our top 3. They are speaking to Davide Valsecchi.
Lando, what a race, what enormous pressure. How did you handle it? And that was from your side, because from outside, that was just epic.
Yeah, it was a tough race. You know, pushing the whole way through, but tricky, hot, tiring. But the perfect result for us as a team. A 1-2 is exactly what we want, and we did it again, so I'm very happy.
Probably the best comeback after Canada. What a turnaround. And how did you handle Oscar Piastri in the first 20 laps? And that was what you were in a certain point when you overtook you. Just up there in turn 3.
We had a great battle, that's for sure. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. For me, a lot of stress, but a lot of fun. And yes, a nice battle. So well on to Oscar. Hopefully it was a nice one for everyone to watch. But inside the car was tough, especially when he was in the DRS. The DRS is so big around here. And it's hard to get him out of the gap. But once I did, I could manage things pretty well. But yeah, it was so quick. So it was good fun.
Congratulations. Thank you. It was a great show.
Thank you.
And Oscar, congratulations. How was from inside their car? Because it was impressive how you could put pressure and apply pressure for all the first 20 laps. Was just something unbelievable. How was from inside?
Intense. I hope it was good watching, because it was pretty hard work from the car. So yeah, tried my absolute best, and you know, probably could have done a better job when I just got ahead momentarily. But yeah, it was a good battle. A bit on the edge at times, and probably pushed the limits a bit far. But yeah, it was a good race. You know, that's what we're here to do: try and race each other and try and fight for wins. And that's what we did today. It was close for me, but not quite enough. So thanks to the team to have the kind of pace we did whilst battling each other was very impressive. So I can't thank the team enough for the car we've got.
And after yesterday, after your Friday, did you expect to be so competitive to fight Lando all through the entire race?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was possible. I think qualifying yesterday was unfortunate with the yellow flag, and then I felt like the pace this weekend has been good. So you know, I think once I could stay in the DRS, I felt pretty good. And yeah, you know, afterwards, once I dropped out after the first stop, it was tough to make the progress to get back. But yeah, some things to go over, see if we could have done anything better.
Congratulations. Lovely show.
Thank you.
The leader of the championship. Well done. Charles, how was? Tell me your feeling after you're back on podium. I think at the beginning you wanted to fight for victory, but then the pace was there. What do you think? How do you rate your weekend?
Oh, I mean, I rate our weekend as a team, I think, really well. But unfortunately, the pace today was just not enough. In the first corner, I was thinking about going, but Lando closed the door, and then that left the door open to Oscar. I lost the second place there, but then anyway, I think they were too fast for us to stay in second. So third was the best we could do. I don't regret much of what we've done today. I think we've done our maximum, just not enough pace.
And tell me about your Ferrari. The move at the corner 3 was good because behind happening the contact, so probably it was better to stay calm in that corner. And about your Ferrari, seems that during the weekend you improved a bit. Then in the race, seems that in the first part you were closer. How was your feeling inside the car?
Yeah, in the first set, I think I overpushed a little bit at the beginning, trying to follow them. Then I degraded a little bit more, but it's part of the game. I mean, I've tried at the end, and he didn't make it today. I think eventually we need more pace. We've brought some upgrades though this weekend, and they definitely helped us to do a step forward. But we need to keep pushing in that direction in order to close the gap to the McLaren that for now are too quick.
And about the next racing, because we are missing a Leclerc victory this year. So tell me about the next races.
I'm missing it too, so I'll give it all to try and be back on the top step of the podium. Obviously, this is our main priority. The whole team deserves it, and hopefully it will be at the next race in Silverstone. We'll give it all.
Thank you so much. Well done. Congratulations.
Davide Valsecchi interviewing the top 3. Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. They are heading to the podium. The crowd have made their way onto the circuit. Another Austrian Grand Prix with great racing. It's time for the cool-down room with Oscar Piastri. And just Oscar Piastri at the moment. As we're looking at classic images of Austrian Grand Prix of old. And now he's surveying the highlights. There's the hit for Antonelli into Verstappen, minding his own business. Then the beginnings. Let's hear what they've all got to say.
Oh, that's fun. Oh, look at my wing. Oh, you get it. You see it? Yeah. Shower. Huh? Oh. I saw that from behind. I was like, yeah. No. This one's hard. Yeah. Yes, it's hard. Oh my god, I hate it. In the last 2 laps, when they were battling ahead. My god. I'm like, oh dear.
Mate, look, watch this.
Oh no. Yeah, that's nice. Probably pull down the sides of it. Man, I had a large one in the last 2 corners. But did you go off as well?
Well, I hit all the gravel that you brought back. Oh shit, it's on me. Yeah, because I turned into the last corner and had the same moment you had, but then just that stayed on.
And that concludes the cool-down room, where Oscar Piastri was eventually joined by race winner Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. Now, in traditional TV style, I say apologies for any language you might have heard. Ferrari are underneath the podium for Charles Leclerc. Oscar Piastri is in second position. He was 2.6 seconds away across the line. Both McLarens back on the podium after that dramatic moment, and neither one of them on the rostrum for the first time all season in the 10th Grand Prix, a 1-2 in the 11th. And they head to their home race, and Lando Norris's home race, with a 1-2 to show for it. They'll head back to Woking, to that glorious factory/movie set that they have, with 3 trophies to show for it. 1 for the constructors, 1 for second place, and 1 for our winner. For the 7th time in Formula One, we will welcome Lando Norris to the top step. But first of all, it was a step forward for Ferrari, but in the end, Charles Leclerc was 19 seconds away from the race-winning pace. And that included a battle all the way through, when the McLarens were entertaining us and slightly compromising their own races, for brilliant effect though Oscar Piastri got past Charles Leclerc into the first turn. There's his race engineer, Tom Stallard. 15-point lead in the championship. But Lando Norris, in Australia, in Monaco, and now in Austria, is climbing to the top step of the podium. Every moment. 7 wins in Formula One now for Lando Norris. And his first win here in Austria. He got close last year. 1 year on, it's all his. And the last McLaren winner at this circuit was DC. So that's a nice club for Norris to be part of. And the man who for so many years ran Formula One, Bernie Eccleston, invites the winner down. You need his CV to tell the winner what to do. But he invites him down to present him with the gold medal. And Neil Holdley, who's the technical director of engineering at McLaren, is accepting the Constructors' Trophy for them. Oscar Piastri on the podium 9 times this season. 4th place last time, 9th place at his home Grand Prix, the rest of the time in the top 3, and still the leader of the World Championship. And Charles Leclerc, for the 47th time in his Formula One career, is a podium finisher. As Ferrari take a step forward, but still have a lot of work to do. Lando Norris has got form with trophies. He places that one down gently before taking his champagne shower. There are some races in Formula One where it might read pole converted to the win, but in the context of who becomes the world champion in 2025, this was a huge chapter in the story. It felt like a must-win race. It turned out to be a race that he did win. He heads to Silverstone with the largest trophy and a 15-point gap to try and overcome in the remainder of the season. A battle that featured 3 appears to be a McLaren fight for the title between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, the top 2 in the World Championship and the Grand Prix today. One more for the album. And Piastri and Norris now have 7 wins apiece in their Formula One careers. Charles Leclerc celebrates a 5th podium finish at this racetrack. And it was a weekend with plenty of narratives elsewhere for Liam Lawson, turning the page on a tough start to this season. First points for Gabriel Bortoleto, who was the driver of the day. Both Saubers in the points, Ocon with a fine improvement. But it's Lando's day, it's Lando's race, and it's game on for the championship of the world.